Go.
Okay, so if we have a look at the title of this poem first, To His Coy Mistress, we've already got a detachment from the poet there. The his is referring, the he is referring to the speaker of the poem. We know that the poet is Andrew Marvell, but this he is not going to be Andrew Marvell. So he obviously wants to create a distance between himself and the speaker, which already suggests that there's going to be some sort of critique of the speaker. And then this idea of mistress, which already suggests something illicit. It's not to his coy wife or to his coy lady, it's to his coy mistress. And then obviously the word coy must be really, really important. So we've got that coyness is like this reluctance, but almost like a feigned reluctance. So we're being told a really important detail about the mistress, and we've already got that impression before we even go into the poem. So if I just read the first stanza, it's quite a long one. There are 3 sections in this poem, and it's quite important to distinguish the sections from each other. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. I by the tide of Humber would complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow faster than empires and more slow, 100 years should go to praise thine eyes and on thy forehead gaze, 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest, an age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For, lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. So, this first section here is kind of the thesis of the poem. So this is where the speaker lays out his argument. And his argument is that he should be, in an ideal world, he would have the whole of eternity to love her and for them to wait, essentially before they consummate their marriage, so before they sleep together. So, had we but world enough and time, we've already got this question of reality. Had we but world enough? This coyness, lady, were no crime. So again, we've got this idea of coyness, and he's saying if things were different in an ideal world.
And in that context, the coyness would be okay. Maybe he'd like it, but almost a little undercurrent of resentment then now. That she's failing to see this.
Also, it's kind of an accusation that she's being coy. We don't actually hear her voice.
Yeah.
So he is suggesting that her shyness, her reluctance is feigned, because that's the meaning of coy. But so he's saying, I know deep down that you're not really reluctant, but we need to be honest now. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. So this sit down and think is this idea of reason.
Yeah. Time. They could talk it through.
Talking through. To walk, again, walk, slowness, and pass our long love's day. So we've got these words that are constantly making us think of this slowing down of time, steadiness and care.
And the romanticness there, that they'd have long love's days, that they'd indulge in one another.
Yeah.
But he hasn't got time for romance. He already sounds quite controlling.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's we, but we only ever hear his voice.
Yeah.
Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. I by the tide of Humber would complain. So he's drawing a contrast here, flattering her, saying basically this river here, the Indian Gange, is kind of an exotic river. So he's flattering her and saying, you would be able to spend time by this beautiful river and find rubies, but I, my humble self would have to sit by the tide of Humber. It's a less exotic river.
And also the idea that he would complain, like even hypothetical complaining.
Yeah, and it's kind of showing his kind of control or investment in the relationship. This idea of Ruby's passion and richness, whereas he's just going to sit and complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood. So we've got biblical reference here. Obviously Noah's Ark. 10 years before the flood. So we're going back in time, and even 10 years previous to that. So he's kind of, that 10 years before would kind of be unnecessary. All it does really is emphasise how long ago it is.
And also, like, the extremeness of that situation, that, you know, that's the context he's putting this in. That's the pressure I think he's going to put on here.
The impossibility of it.
Yeah. And the idea that in the flood people were saved, almost as if he's so honourable that, you know, he'd be saving her.
Yeah. And you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. And like you say about a saving, this implies that they would live through the flood, past all that, and then this here refers to it's another biblical event, but a lot later, so that their love, you know, in an ideal world would survive all this, and that she'd be able to take all the time in the world. My vegetable love should grow. This is suggesting a kind of, again, a slowness. But there's an undertone there of, I don't know, vegetable. It's not exactly the most romantic of terms, is it?
No,
It's quite.
But the idea that the vegetable should grow vaster than the empires, that something would come from nothing. That it would be the start of something.
Something from nothing.
And maybe there's a suggestion of sort of raw passion there.
Yeah. And the fact that he's admitting, yes, you know, love should grow, but we're wondering what is he going to say later. Vaster than empires and more so, again, this hyperbole. So it's an awful lot of hyperbole with the vast amounts of time, the size. We've got time, size. Again, time, and 100 years shall go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. This whole bit here, would you say that's like a blazon?
Yeah.
Where he's kind of listing all of her qualities. The Manhunt is a blazon poem as well. Yeah. Where he goes through and comments on all. She goes through and comments on all of his body's parts. So that would maybe be a comparison that could be made. It's interesting as well that he talks about the parts first, all the parts. So maybe that's exposing his superficiality.
Yeah.
His shallowness.
Yeah, and picking out the breast.
The breast,
adore each breast.
The forehead, the eyes, and then this idea of parts, and then finally your heart. So that the physical comes before
the emotional.
The emotional. So
almost that is promising a love.
Yeah, yeah.
But she has to deliver.
Yeah.
For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at a lower rate. So that almost that she's owed this adoration.
Yeah.
But that again, that's quite controlling and quite manipulative.
Yeah. And this line here, nor would I love at a lower rate. So again, I would never treat you badly.
Yeah, his love is so grand.
Yeah.
His love's more important than other love.
Yeah. I cannot give you less than this.
Yeah.
But then we're told, well, actually I am going to give you less than this. So here, so we've got a turn. This would be the antithesis. So this is his argument, this is what he wants. And then this is the reality, which is the opposite of what he wants. Well, what he wants, in inverted commas. But at my back, I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. So it's this idea that he has no control. He's just bound by the control of time.
And when he says, I always hear it, that he's impatient, that there's an urgency.
Yeah. I think this is referring to a god as well, a god of time, winged chariot, urgency with the always hearing. And again, he's got no part in it. It's just what's happening to him. And yonder all before us lie deserts of vast eternity. So there's so much in front of us, but it's this kind of desert. So it's devoid of life.
It's dry. It's empty.
Which is
it's unwanted, essentially.
Yeah. It's a contrast to this stanza, and actually we could draw a contrast between the deserts and the rivers.
Yeah.
So in the Thesis,
in his argument, it's natural and everything's flowing.
and that there's life and it's never ending, but here things dry up. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. Then worms shall try that long preserved virginity. So
the idea she's locked away and preserved.
Yeah.
That trapped. Maybe
Preserved tomb. The marble vault would be like the tomb.
And his echoing song, the idea that he's lonely there. That there's a loneliness to that.
Yeah. And I think it's quite threatening as well. Like, basically he's saying you're going to die and you won't be able to hear me then. And it's almost like you're going to regret
worms will eat
this.
you. It's quite aggressive imagery there as well. The worms shall try that long preserved virginity.
Yeah.
And there's that pre-modification of virginity, that it's long and preserved. And I think there's, at the time he was writing, clearly virginity was meant to be preserved.
Yeah. And drawing emphasis to the idea that it has been a long time, and always there's like subtle little hints of there's no point in this, there's no point in spending all this time, and you're trying really hard, but really it's futile because eventually it will be gone anyway.
Well, yeah, and there on your quaint honour, that's really almost patronising, isn't it? That it's quite quaint of you to think this way, but come on.
Yeah. Your quaint honour turned to dust, so in other words her virginity will be lost, and it'll be the worms that do it if she dies before they're able to consummate their relationship. And into ashes all my lust. There's really a hint there in his real intentions, isn't there?
And also the idea that he'll be cremated with his lust. And all my lust, not just my lust, all of it, like it's all consuming. There's an intensity.
Yeah. And an implication that love doesn't last after death, but it just disappears. And it's lust as well. I think that's significant. That it's lust and not love. Like up here, we've got all this about love, and it's like, is it kind of an accident maybe that is revealing that actually it's lust?
But does it mention love? Oh, love you 10 years before the flood. So love is mentioned, but only once.
Yeah.
And that's sort of hypothetical in a way, isn't it? When he's theorising.
Yeah, I would, and nor would I love at a lower rate, but he's actually saying I'm actually not going to love you, I'm actually just lusting for you. The graves are fine and private place, but none, I think, do their embrace. So again, this thing of after we're dead, there's no point anymore, so we might as well get it over with now.
And I wonder if that's a little criticism, the idea of the graves are fine and private place, almost that she's choosing that.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's linked to her coyness.
Yeah. And it's kind of like he's got this authoritative tone, so he's telling her what's what. We do have this I think here, so we do know that it is his opinion, but then
I wonder if that's a bit of for want of a better phrase, like a dig though, but for I think, as if there's authority in that opinion, and maybe he feels that opinion will influence her.
Yeah. He clearly thinks really highly of his own voice, doesn't he? So then the third stanza will be the synthesis, where he kind of brings together his argument here and says what he's trying to get at. So now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like a morning dew. So again, we've got this kind of superficiality. It's her body that he's interested in, and
also a bit of flattery there, I think. Youthful, morning dew, that sort of suggests it. There's admiration there, perhaps.
Yeah, and it kind of brings us back to all this flattery here. So we had the flattery. We've then got this quite insulting bit where he's saying you're going to die and the worms will try for your virginity, and then again back to some flattery, so to get her back on side. And while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport us while we may, and now like amorous birds of prey. So here it's an implication that he's asking for sex.
Let us sport while we may. almost that his argument is, let's just do it because we can.
Yeah. While we may. And now, like, amorous birds of prey, so it's this kind of animal-like... Almost, it's kind of equating them to the birds of prey, because we're maybe saying we're all mortal. We're just like animals.
And we're base. But also on the next line, rather at once our time devour that. The language is now, birds of prey devour. They do what comes naturally to them, and there's an implication that that's what he'll do to her.
Instincts. Natural. Lust, maybe. Than languish in his slow chapped power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. So this is that like last plea of, right, we need to do this now. Roll all our strength and all, it's very physical, our sweetness up into one ball, and
Two become one.
Yeah.
Tear our pleasures.
Yeah.
Like the devour.
Yeah. It's that animal.
Control in his lust as well, that he will be powerful, he will dominate, I think.
Yeah. We've got this let us. What's the term for that kind of...
Imperative, really.
Yeah. So he's kind of masking it in this kind of politeness, let us, but actually he's telling her this is what we are going to do, and tear our pleasures with rough strife. Again, this idea of rough and pleasures, it's all very physical, through the iron gates of life. So this iron is like this strong, impenetrable metal
that they're going to get through together.
Yeah. And then these last two lines, thus, so this is kind of like his final argument, though we cannot make our sun stand still, though we can't slow down
Stop time, yeah.
Yet we will make him run. It's like we can't stop time, so we'll speed it up.
Yeah. We'll live while we can. We'll do it while we can.
And it's like he's saying this here would be a kind of magical thing to expect to happen for time to slow down. And so he's saying, well, I can't give you that magic, but I'll give you this magic instead. So, like, high expectations of what sex can achieve. Maybe physical relations.
And to say he's dedicating this poem to a woman who's coy.
Yeah.
There's a bit of irony there, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe that's what attracts him, the potential corruption.
Yeah. He likes the fact that she still has her virginity, and he just wants to take it while he's still got a chance. In terms of form, we've got a couplet rhyme scheme throughout, which maybe it's kind of the underlying message of
control.
Control.
And also constant reiteration of what he wants.
Also kind of bringing together of two parts, like it maybe signify or symbolises he wants to bring the two of them together. The language is very flowery, which maybe, and it kind of has this air of sophistication.
But the message is not particularly sophisticated.
So perhaps it's a mask for his actual...
To attract her who's coy.
A mask for his simple desires, and attracting the woman. I think as well the way that it's structured in the three stanzas, it's like it's a very calculated, so that it's a clear structure.
It's thorough.
He's thought through
all the possibilities.
Yeah, and he knows it's like he's kind of calculated the way in which he's going to get what he wants, and that's by this flattery, this harsh reality, and then back to the flattery and the kind of the heat of the passion of what could happen.